Hi everyone, and welcome to Scorpio, Sun, Moon, and Rising, June 2021 Love, Abundance, and Spiritual Health reading. This is I Am Illuminated Tarot and Meaning-Based Spiritual Coaching Services. I am Lauren. Thank you so much for joining me here. So in this reading, we are going to take a look at love, abundance, and spiritual health and help identify areas of blockages or disconnection from receiving as much as you can in each one of those areas to help you navigate around them so you can continue to stay in flow and really feel that emotional connection to bringing out your authentic self and engaging it with your external environment. So I'm going to go ahead and pull a card for each one of those categories. I'm going to do an intuitive reading for each, and then I'll pull a few tarot cards at the end to get any additional messages. So all my lovely Scorpios, let's dive right into the energy of love. So when we think about love, obviously there's romantic love, and there's unconditional love. And there is then the version of love that I like to focus on, which is the underlying energy that connects everything. That connects not only each one of us as human beings to every other human being on this planet, but also that connects us to animals and plants, and from the smallest molecule to the largest star in the sky. That underlying, when you think of the theory of everything, it's basically that. It's the unexplainable connection between everything. And the reason why I focus on calling that love is because it focuses for me on the fact that there is this divine, intelligent design to our universe, to our experience, that we will never quite understand fully, but which we also can't deny is there. And our universe is unique in its seemingly imperfect perfection. So there are so many things that are kind of go against each other. We finally figure out one aspect and can explain one thing, but then we discover something else in the universe that directly goes against that. And at any given time, there can appear to be this layer of chaos in our external lives, and yet there's this underlying element of everything is perfect as well. And this is where I look at the energy of love, is that when we think about being loved for the perfect being that we are, being loved unconditionally, that really is where I feel love comes from, because we are all part of this intelligent design. We are all perfect in our imperfection. And because we can't quite see the bigger picture, and we'll never be able to see the bigger picture through explaining everything, we are loved in who we are as a unique individual. And that also goes to every little thing, from the smallest plant that makes this specific little flower to the largest, again, star or nebula, galaxy in the sky. So in getting back to the cards of love, I use the Power of Surrender deck for this reading, because love really does ask us to be vulnerable. Love asks us to come as we are, as our almost like unique, naked versions of ourselves, and bring that out into life. Because we were designed to be as we are, and we were designed to fill a specific role. And we shouldn't hide any aspect of self when we are coming out to engage with our external environment, and especially when we're engaging with others. And every time we engage from a place of love with somebody else, we are coming and should be coming as a vulnerable being as much as they are. And we should be ready to respect and appreciate that in them as much as they should be doing the same. And that's really the reciprocity of love, of the energy of love, of you give as much as you receive, and vice versa. And this just keeps the divinity of our connected experience going. So Scorpio, for the category of love for this month, we have surrender fear. And it says, let go of the fearful stories you're telling yourself. Stay in the moment, focus on solutions, and celebrate every baby step forward. And this is perfectly said for love, for being vulnerable in love. In that, for you, I can see this month that perhaps you've been dealing with stories from the past. We've all been hurt at some point in our lives. And that's really where we start to lose that initial connection that we have to love. So when you think about, a parent-child relationship, there is such an amazing, special bond between a parent and a child. And a child does love unconditionally. They don't, their life experience is not colored by anything. All they can do is express love. And what happens as we get older, as we elevate, through our experience, we move from being this innocent child of looking to give love as much as receive it from others in our kind of naked, vulnerable state. And then as we get older, we get hurt. And we try to bring out our vulnerable side, we end up unfortunately having others that don't quite understand it, or it creates a situation that doesn't have, the outcome that we were expecting. And so we start to mask our true, unique self with these layers of, I'm not going to do that again. I'm not going to be hurt like that. And that's what prevents us from being able to be truly vulnerable to fit and appreciate our own uniqueness, and to really tap into that energy of love, to love ourselves first, so that then we can then love another, coming from that same perspective, from that same unconditional perspective of, I see you in your beauty and your uniqueness and your naked vulnerableness, and I love that. And I hope you can do the same for me. And here it says, let go of the fearful stories you're telling yourself. Focus on solutions and celebrate every baby step forward. And it's making me think about going back to that innocence of a child, that often, when I'm thinking about for you guys, the area this month really for you to focus on is, what part of yourself have you hidden away? The energies of this month really are focusing on each one of us to push past some part of ourselves that has caused us to feel insecure. And it really ties in beautifully to this message of surrender fear, which, when we're not careful, we can end up losing out on beautiful, especially in romantic love, and in these relationship of truly being able to share your life experience with a partner who is at the same level as you. And what can happen is, when we focus so much on all the areas where we've been hurt, and we focus on the stories that basically have now become the mask that we wear, we end up projecting the story outward instead of, and this is what another will see. So when we're looking to get into a truly emotionally fulfilling romantic relationship, we are projecting, we're basically sharing with this other person who we are. But what ends up happening is, when we're coming from a place of fear, and we're not coming from a place of true vulnerable love, we share with this other person a version of ourselves, the story that we've created to mask who we truly are. And what can end up happening is that down the line, either this person, your significant other, becomes confused because you don't seem to be aligning with the story that you're telling, or you become frustrated because you feel that you're unable to share this part of yourself that you yourself have hidden away out of fear. And then you start to project that onto the significant other. And that's really what I'm seeing here for you guys right now, is that there is this, and it's just kind of coming through for me, that this is really pertaining to a lot of you, obviously not all of you, but there is something surrounding emotional love and about vulnerability, about being able to share your real story, not the story that you've created, but the true vulnerable story that you have hidden. And this is creating tension because you now are projecting on the other person what you are expecting as a response from them. So if you were looking to, let's say, express a part of yourself, like you have a creative ability and you don't feel comfortable expressing that, well, instead of coming back to self and realizing that this is the seat of control, this is, you get to make the decisions, you take the action in your life, and to sit there and say, well, I'm the one who's not really taking action. I've hid the fact that I love painting and all I want to do is paint because years ago I was told by my parents that I could never make a living off of that. And then at one point I shared my paintings with somebody and it scared them away and or not scared them away, but they told me that they weren't great. And so it scared me away from continuing. And eventually what happens is, because you've cut yourself off emotionally from sharing that authentic part of yourself vulnerably with the external world, and coming from this place of almost like a baby type innocence of like, well, I'm just going to keep putting my paintings out there because somebody will love them. Just like somebody will always love a child. You're coming from a place now instead where it's like, well, if I tried to share this with my partner, they would think I was crazy and they wouldn't let me follow this path anyways because I have to make money, and they would in turn not support me wanting to do this. And so you start to project your own lack of faith in your unique gifts from the divine. And that can in turn really hurt a relationship. That can be a strong block in being able to give and receive love. Because then what happens is that you're not able to give the other person the chance to fully appreciate who you are, to fully appreciate the real you, and to be of service and support to the real you. Most people in significant relationships want to support their partner, but it's when that other partner is not allowing their full self to be seen. And again, it's just the story of, I used to like to paint, but I gave that up because, nobody makes money from painting. And so you're selling this story of, I've given up on that because I know that it doesn't make money. And so I've chosen this other career path. And so I'm going to focus on this because that's my choice as a strong individual. And you're not giving your partner the chance to support your painting. Instead, your partner just thinks, oh, well, she painted at one point, it didn't work out. She thinks it's silly, and so I'm never going to bring it up again. Or if she does bring it up, I'm going to say, well, didn't you already try that and you didn't like it? And then that can in turn make you shut down even more of like, see, I told you he wasn't going to, or she wasn't going to support me in this. And in reality, it's you. It's the fear of releasing your true self to somebody else that doesn't allow that love to come back to you, doesn't allow that person to give love to you. And so this month, I really feel like in all of your connections, this can also extend into the work environment as well, that sometimes we come in to a workplace and we may need help or we are fearful of taking action in some aspect of our work life because it didn't, again, work out in the best, or somebody at some point told you that you weren't great at this, or you needed to be better. And so you kind of just hid this part of yourself. And then maybe now you're in a new work environment And so let's say it's public speaking. Let's say at some point in the past, you were asked to publicly speak, whether it was leading a meeting or even on a larger capacity in your place of work. And you tried to do it. It was out of your comfort zone. You got up and then you were told, whoa, yeah, I don't think we're going to ask you to lead the meeting anymore. You didn't do so great. You're not a good public speaker. Well, you're going to obviously take that hurt, and the next time you're asked to do something along those lines, you're going to shut down and be afraid. And you're going to you're basically going to cover it up with the story of like, public speaking's not my thing, so I don't even go down that road. So somebody else can do that. And in reality, you might be actually a great public speaker, and all you need is a little help and practice, because nobody's just fantastic right off the bat. A lot of times we have to practice something. It's even like being a painter or take any job. You have to do it for a while and actually also receive help from a teacher or mentor to be able to grow and expand and become the best version of whatever task or, thing you're trying to take on. And so what happens is that then in your next job, you could be working side by side with somebody or under a boss, let's say, who would love to mentor you in public speaking, who thinks that you're fantastic and that you have a lot to share with your coworkers or team. And so they ask you to step up into this position where you have to then lead the team meeting or whatever it comes out, whatever you're doing that ends up having to speak in front of everybody. And you in turn say, oh, no, out of fear. Oh, no, I'm a bad public speaker. I can't do that. Or worse, you instead of saying, I can't do that, you say, I don't want to do that. Like, why don't you give that to Tiffany and John instead? I think they're better at public speaking. And you lose out on an opportunity of growth. And possibly you lose out on the opportunity of discovering an ability that you actually have and that you're being pushed to open up to. And you're being given an opportunity, but instead through fear, you shut down and you close off. And you end up having your boss then kind of say, oh, well, that's kind of a shame because I would have loved to have helped you. I think you, on our communication, I think you're a great communicator. And you're like, yeah, no. And then you prevent your own boss from being able to reciprocate love towards you through, love comes in all forms, right? So being able to mentor somebody is of being of service to someone, and that could be them fulfilling a need to express love. And to also express love to where you get to be the recipient and actually be and benefit from it. So I think this month in love, you're going to see where I would say take a moment to try to bring awareness to any area right now, whether it is in a romantic relationship, whether it's in a friend or family relationship, or whether it takes place in the workplace, to see where you have these blockages of fear about working with your authentic self, expressing your authentic self in a vulnerable way where others may have the opportunity to criticize or maybe tell you that, you need to elevate this side to yourself, and see if you can bring this part up in a vulnerable way. See if you can bring it out without the fear of what your external environment is going to bring back. Instead, tap into the true courage it takes to show yourself for exactly who you are, and tap into that positive aspect of curiosity to say, what would happen if I share this part of myself again? I've hidden it for so long. I've told this story long enough, and now I don't even remember what it was like before I started telling the story. And open yourself up to the positive experiences that will come into you. Open yourself up to what your significant other's reaction will be when you share this vulnerable part of yourself. Open yourself up to what your coworker or boss's reaction will be when you step in and say, yeah, actually, I thank you for the opportunity. And again, it says focus on solutions and celebrate every baby step forward. So the solution might simply just be in accepting, yes, I would like to lead this meeting and talk about this topic that I'm really passionate on. But I'm going to be honest. The last time I led a meeting like this, I was told that I didn't do a great job. And I wasn't really given the resources to get any better. So I'm curious as to what resources I have available now to help me lead this meeting successfully. And then you give the other person the opportunity then to engage from a place of love with you. And the more we're vulnerable, if you notice in and of yourself, or just with yourself as well, I know from my own personal experience, the more vulnerable somebody is with you, the more appreciative you are of them. Because we all understand how difficult it is to express areas of vulnerability, to express areas where we're not perfect, to express when we've actually been hurt by something. And so when somebody is vulnerable, we tend to want to come in and say, oh, that's okay, like, let me help. And you actually, in being vulnerable, end up getting more of a response that is positive and that is more beneficial to you than if you try to hide it and come across as being strong and whatever. Because most people are like, well, they kind of get off put by that. They're like, well, okay, great. So you don't want to lead the team meeting. And then your boss could walk away and think, is she just lazy? Did your boss could walk away and take offense? Like, hey, she just denied a task I gave her. So obviously you can never control another's reaction. But what I've found in general is that the more vulnerable you are, when you feel that you're blocked in love and you feel like you're not receiving love, the more vulnerable you are and the more vulnerably you put yourself out there, the more you bring back into yourself love from others, support from the universe. All right, I'm going to move on. We're already 20 minutes in here. I could talk about love all day long. Love is such a powerful energy that we work with, and I'm clearly getting wrapped up in this. So I hope you can push past your fears to really express who you are this month and really tap into being as vulnerable as you can and be excited to see the response from others, because it also allows others to be vulnerable too, and everybody wants to feel like they can be vulnerable. All right, so now we're going to get into abundance. And abundance is a fun category because abundance it can mean financial abundance. We all want to know when we're going to be super mega wealthy. But there's also the levels of abundance that at any given time, each one of us can be hoping for abundance in a specific area. We could be hoping perhaps at a specific time in our life for more abundance of time to be with our family. Or we can be looking at another time in our life of an abundance of peace and serenity, or an abundance of supportive and fun relationships with others. So we're looking at abundance in whatever form you currently are looking to bring into your life right now. And I hear from all of you money. Sometimes I get these messages and it's funny. Right now I just heard money. Yes, we can all use money. So Scorpio, let's see what is a potential block in the realm of abundance for you. Ooh, okay, here we go. So we have two cards. So we have Round and Round, number 25. And we have Deep Knowing, number 43. Now, when I think of the card of Round and Round, it looks like it has the, I can't think of the name of this. It's basically the perfect spiral, so to speak. It's the divine ratio image. And when I'm just looking at this right off the bat, it's making me think of kind of the, again, divine design to the universe. that there's everything within balance. And it's a spiral that is always going out from the center space. So it's always going to be getting larger and larger, but in accordance to the divine ratio. So it'll never, it almost like fights it, or it shows, let's see if I can, it's still Mercury retrograde, you'll have to forgive me. It basically shows that something can expand and get bigger and bigger and bigger. And it may seem, again, like a piece of chaos. It may seem like it's expanding to the point where it's just going to dissolve, but in reality, it's expanding in divine order and divine balance. And when I think of round and round, I think of the spiral of something getting bigger and expanding and expanding and expanding. And yet, at any given time, we may, depending on where we are ourselves in this and our perception and perspective of this spiral of the growth, we may feel like we're just spinning in place. Instead of seeing the grander design behind it and seeing that, no, we're not spinning in place. Actually, what we're doing is we're being given additional chances to see the same thing, learn from it, and expand on it, become part of this growth, part of this divine evolution. And I'm really feeling from this card specifically that there's this element of an abundance for you guys, that you feel almost like you're kind of stuck in this place of, this is where I am, and I'm trying to do stuff, and I feel like I'm spinning my wheels. I feel like I'm spinning my wheels, and maybe I see a little bit of growth here or a little bit of growth there, but in reality, where's the bigger picture? What am I evolving into? It's almost like I get this feeling that you guys are kind of lost in, like not being able to see the forest through the trees. Like this is becoming almost more of like a whirlpool feel instead of like I'm part of the expansion of the universe, expanding into this greatness, this abundance. And so for you guys, I think really what the biggest block, especially with deep knowing coming up with that. And I love this picture with the owl. And again, it kind of is bringing in the moon and space, and there's this element of, expanding out into, beyond just what we know here, that there's some aspect for you right now that, because you're kind of in this, you're in this intense period of growth, that there is some part of you that knows. There's some part of you that knows that you're working towards something bigger. And there is this deep knowing within you. There is this element of knowing that you will achieve abundance in some area that you're focusing on. And it's almost like you can feel things expanding. You can feel your life changing. You can feel the positive benefits of what it's like to evolve. And Scorpio, you are a sign of true evolution and transformation. That is the whole story of your sign, is that you, kind of like the phoenix rising from the ashes, you go through a death and are reborn as something different than what you came in as. Your card in the tarot, your major arcana card, is the death card. And that's not because you are harbingers of death or death is coming for you. That is because you harness the superpower ability of death and transformation. That you are able to actually be able to let an old version of yourself die away to bring in this new version. And I feel right now that you're kind of going through this expansive growth period. And it's almost like you're just the way that the universe would feel in its expanding form, as something is kind of like pulled apart. It's almost like you're losing a sense of self. You're losing this sense of identity that you once hung on to. And that could be that, you were somebody big in your community and that was what you identified with. And now you've moved away from your community and you're not you don't feel tethered to anything. You feel like you're part of this expansion, but you don't, now you don't have the tether. There's nothing holding you to what you could have seen originally as your kind of linear growth. Now you're been pulled into the divine spiral of outward growth. Or let's say you've always been a stay-at-home parent and now you've gone back into the work world, and all of a sudden that identity of being a parent is totally different in the work world. You're having to take a look at yourself in a different environment. And so there is this capacity here, or not capacity, but there is this element here in your category of abundance that the main block is trying to keep yourself tied to the old and not letting something die that needs to die, and giving in to this place. And this is where the deep knowing is going to come into giving in to almost being pulled apart by this divine growth. Giving in to letting, every bit of yourself come apart so that it can be allowed to be transformed, so that it can come back as something far more powerful, far more elevated. And if you can give up this old version of self, this part of yourself that you really was part of your identity, part of when you say I am, then the abundance of what's coming in, the abundance of what you're being asked to grow into is going to feel more like an elevation and less like a change and a ripping apart. I know it's this kind of a strange message, but it's a really powerful one. This is one of those times when often right before, this is how I see it and how I've personally experienced this as well, that when you really feel this kind of breaking apart of your identity and you're being asked to let a part of yourself go to transform into something new, you almost can't see, again, you're like in the eye of the storm. You can't see the storm. You can feel it. You can hear it. You know what's going on, but you're in this space of what am I doing here? I know I need to go out, but I can't quite see what's happening. And this is where you really have to tap into trust and faith. So if you're looking for, let's say, more money in your life, well, it is going to come, but it's going to come through this transformation of self. And or let's say you're looking for, you're looking for abundance and love. You really want to bring in a romantic partnership. Well, in you releasing this old identity, you're going to actually expand and transform yourself to where you're now going to be seen by others in a different light. And in doing so, you're going to attract the right person to who you are being asked to become. Not to attract a person who is tied to your old self, but to attract a person who's going to be a part of your continued evolution. And that person is probably just right outside your vision, but you are feeling so out of control that it's almost like you just have to go with it. You have to trust in that deep knowing. Trust in that knowing that you're in this pinpoint moment of expansion of self, and to go with it. And if you can go with it, if you can step into the flow of it and step into going around and around and have full faith that you're not just going around and around in a circle that's an endless loop like this. You're going around and around in an ever increasing outward spiral. Fibonacci spiral. That's what it is. Fibonacci. Just came to me. That if you can have that faith and understand that with every action you take, you're going further out and expanding and evolving into this better version of self, and you can just go with that, the abundance that's going to come in is going to be exponential. You, Scorpio, I did not get this for any of my other readings. You guys are going through this intense push to really elevate. And the level of abundance I feel is coming in for you is going to be one of those things where you look back at this point in your life, and you'll see that this is like that turning point for you. This is that point of, okay, I went from being this version of myself to this version, and now you'll look back a year from now and say, oh my gosh, I can't believe how much has happened. I didn't know that this was that moment. But right before I got that promotion, right before I ran into the new love of my life, that right before, we got the opportunity to move into a brand new home. And it's going to be one of those moments where you look back and go, that was that time. I felt like I was just, chasing my tail, but instead I was bringing all of this in. So it's more about just giving in, not fighting the flow, not trying to kind of go against the current, and just know that this feeling of kind of like, who am I, and muddled sense of self is helping to create a new sense of self. This isn't about going back and trying to find the one thing to tether yourself to. This is about allowing kind of destiny and fate to show you who you are becoming. To take all the same pieces of yourself that are divinely there, all your abilities, hopes, and dreams, and to recreate them in this beautiful, elevated version of self. So you guys have a lot of abundance coming in. You just have to tap into that faith of, I'm going to just go with it. I've been relocated, and I'm just going to jump right in and do the tasks I need to, go to new places and meet new people and see what happens. Or I'm going to just start being open to new love in every capacity, and to start being able to see myself in a new way. That as I start to look for this romantic partnership, that I allow for my new experience of self to come through in my communication, in my interpersonal communications. So it actually kind of ties in actually beautifully to your love reading as well, about releasing this fear of showing some part of yourself that you're being asked now to bring back up and work with in a different capacity. Okay, now we're going to take a look at spiritual health. And I'm going to pull a spirit animal card for spiritual health. And when I talk about spiritual health really is looking at how healthily you are engaging your internal unique self with your external environment. Meaning, how engaged are you? How aware of self are you in your day-to-day routine? So as you are able to have chances to make decisions, to take action, how aware are you of, just in general, does this align with me? How does this make me feel? If I choose to make this decision and take this step of action, how is that going to be in alignment with me? So let's see here. Now, I apologize, this deck is a giant deck. It's actually very difficult for me to shuffle. So sometimes it takes a little longer for a card to come out. So let's see, Scorpios, what's your spiritual health for the month? That's so crazy. That card of abundance that was coming through for you, like the feeling that came through with it. I wish I could really, have you guys be able to see it, but it's almost like I feel almost lightheaded from it. There is this element of feeling pulled apart, and it's a little scary. I can understand how you guys feel right now. It's that true kind of loss of sense of self, and yet there's so much coming in, and you're gonna really understand your sense of self coming up ahead. So don't worry too much. All right, so I love this card. Okay, so we have Rabbit Spirit, number 49, and it says, now is a lucky time. Beautiful. So in the element of thinking about how healthy your connection is between you connecting your internal self authentically with your external environment, thinking about now is a lucky time. And I love that you can see like the little baby rabbits here. She's abundant. This is a card to me of abundance. And for you, what I'm seeing here for spiritual health is that this is a time of spiritual growth for you guys. I mean, when I'm talking about expansion, I think even this card shows that expansion, this growth element of kind of whatever you put out authentically is going to multiply like rabbits. So that's really where I feel for you guys. I don't feel so much a block as I do. It will become a block if you don't tap into what we were talking about previously, which was opening yourself up to being vulnerable, bringing up a part of yourself that perhaps you've been too scared or created like stories around for you to not bring it out. And the more that you share this part of yourself, the more that you work with it, the more that you bring it out and maybe express it from a true place of vulnerability, no matter what situation it is, what circumstance, the more it's going to multiply your spiritual evolution, that feeling of being connected and engaged to your external environment. So as an example of this could be something where if we bring it back to painting, and I always fall back on painting. Let me see if I can use a different example. So let's say you have always wanted to have a animal rescue shelter. And it's something that you've thought about, like you loved animals growing up, you volunteered at maybe an animal shelter at one point, and you had animals growing up and you loved animals. And then as you got older, you realized it didn't fit in with your lifestyle, or maybe you tried to see if you could work with animals and it just, the money wasn't in it, whatever it is, you could have gotten a significant other who didn't like animals and it just didn't make sense. So you not only don't have animals in your life, you also aren't working with animals. And maybe at some point your parents told you, don't get into animal rescue, or they came over to your house one day when you were, maybe being an animal rescue shelter, a temporary shelter for, let's say, cats and dogs. And they came over at one point and you had 6 cats that you were trying to adopt out and 4 dogs. And they came over and said, this is crazy town. Like, this is chaos. Like, your house is a mess. Like, who has this many cats? You're never going to get a partner by doing this. Are you bringing in any money? Like, is this, And so you took that to heart and said, oh my gosh, is my life really that crazy? Maybe I shouldn't do this anymore. And so you put it away. You stopped being that champion for animals. And you told yourself that you just didn't have the time to continue to dedicate towards being that champion for animals. And yet that was incredibly fulfilling for you. And so now you've hidden that part of yourself away. When people bring it up, you're like, yeah, I love animals, but it's a shame. I just, I can't really find the time to volunteer anymore. And somebody's like, well, why don't you, work on over here at this place? And you're like, yeah, and you just shut down. Or you've thought about it and you've wondered about what it would be like to go back to veterinary school and actually work with animals in that capacity. But that would entail you having to go back to school and spend money and, possibly give up the current job that you're in. And everybody tells you what a wonderful job and you've already seen how far you're going to go with it. But yet deep down somewhere, you have this desperate need to work with animals. And it's something that shouldn't be denied because you were created a singular, unique being with your own unique needs, abilities, hopes, and dreams. And that's because you're meant to fulfill some part of the greater puzzle that is the connective picture of our entire existence. And so not everybody was born with that drive, that need to want to be a champion for animals. And if you don't step up into that place and be able to do that and be that, then there are going to be animals that suffer because of it. There will be animals that don't end up having a champion, that don't end up getting to be in a home before they get adopted out, that don't end up getting love and attention when they're in a shelter, that don't end up getting love and attention when they're sick. And so you are needed in this capacity. And now is the time to bring that out and re-engage that part of yourself. So let's say you start to talk about it with people. You haven't talked about it. Maybe talk about it with your partner and to say, I really miss having animals in my life. And I know that you're allergic. And I know that maybe you don't like dogs, but I need to somehow bring this back into my life because I'm not feeling truly emotionally connected. And this can be a discussion of, okay, well, maybe we'll start with, just one cat. Or maybe it's you vulnerably admitting this to your partner, and your partner says, well, sweetheart, I'm so sorry that I have allergies and I would love to have animals, but I just can't. But I would love for you to be able to, donate your time at a local shelter. Like, what do we need to do? How can we, let me help you do some research. Or let me help rearrange our schedules so that you can go out there and do that. And that's really where, in just simply expressing and engaging a need of your own with your external environment in a vulnerable way, that's really what elevates your spiritual experience. And that's when I talk about spiritual health. It's how much you are connecting from that place of authenticity instead of hiding a part of yourself to where then you become frustrated and insecure and have anxiety around it. And, to take this into all levels, like perhaps you are at work and you express that you love to, you love animals and you miss being able to help them in some capacity. And one of your coworkers says, oh my gosh, well, I volunteer at this place. Like, would you like to come with me? Or we're really looking to adopt out this one specific animal. Would you like to help? And right off the bat, again, you're engaging in an authentic way. So now your coworker knows that this is a dream, a hope, a need of yours. And they're going to continue then to spread that word as they talk to other people about you. Oh, did you know that so-and-so really is into, animal awareness, or at one point had been, an animal advocate and she helped with adoption, and then that's going to continue to spread and open up this sphere of people who now have the ability to connect you with this part of yourself that needs to be expressed. So that's really the message I'm getting here for you guys, is that this whole kind of connected reading is really all about you fearlessly stepping into becoming this new version of yourself that focuses around some aspect of yourself that you've been insecure about, that you've hidden away, and that now it's time to transform the identity you felt connected to up until this point, in simply taking baby steps towards sharing this very deep-seated need of yours to express and engage with your external environment, and just allowing that to transform you from the inside out into a new heightened version of self, which is going to help engage you with your destiny, engage you with what the universe had initially put you here to experience and fulfill. All right, so now I'm going to pull just a few tarot cards to get some additional messages here. Let's see. So one card just flew right out there. I'm going to see if we can get an additional couple. So we have the Ten of Swords and the Moon. And right off the bat, what this says to me is fear. But I've been hurt. Last time I shared this, I was at my lowest point. And then with the moon is a lack of clarity. The moon is what's unknown. It's what's hidden. But it also asks us that in those moments of darkness to continue to act from a place of faith. That even though we can't quite see the whole picture, that we continue to walk forward in knowing that eventually the sun will illuminate what the journey that we're on. So the moon, just because there's a lack of clarity, it isn't about us just stopping and staying where we are and disconnecting. It's about you're being asked in the lack of clarity to continue on your path forward with full faith that the sun will eventually come out and illuminate where you are and why you were asked to walk this path. But these two cards together are really showing me here that there's this element of, but I was at my lowest point. Last time I tried to do this, I felt either stabbed in the back or I was brought to my lowest place where I either felt incredibly financially insecure. I was hurt by a ex-romantic partner. I was shunned by my parents. And so I can't go through that again because I don't know what the result. I don't see a way forward. I don't know what's going to be the result of me putting myself in this vulnerable position again. And what you're being asked to do is walk this path on faith. Walk this path on faith knowing that there is a reason why you were created the specific way that you are. And this can be, on a very deep level, it can go beyond saying, I just want to paint for a living, or I love animals and I want to reconnect with animals. This could be on a very deep level of saying, I no longer see myself as a woman, I want to be a man. Or I, want to walk away from a long-term partnership. I mean, this is something where this is expressing some deep-seated need of your own and being open to the fact that the universe has a plan for you, but that you also, in your own free will, get to interact with it. And that together, that's what creates your true destiny. And that it's if you keep working, engaging with destiny through free will, that you will ultimately fulfill your place, and in doing so, end up bringing in abundance to yourself. And so this is going to be this is a powerful month for you guys. I mean, this reading is just taking it out of me. I just feel like so much coming through. It's a lot. It's a lot. And I feel you on that. I feel almost like it's like so much that it's like, like I feel out of breath. There is this element of feeling a little out of control this month for you guys. And I really think that this is kind of that expansion moment before everything comes back and you get to see that new picture, that new image of what the best version of yourself is going to look like. But this is that scary moment of it's almost like if you've ever been on one of those rides where they drop you and bring you back up and drop you again. And it's like, you're eventually going to come down. But it's every time you go back up, it's like, oh my God, am I going to fly off the top of this ride? And it's like, no, every time you go up and down, you're getting closer and closer and closer to the bottom. And that's kind of what I feel for you guys. So it's almost like this feeling of like, I'm going to expand and expand and expand and expand and I'm going to be lost. And it's like, no, you're actually, now you're at the critical crux point and now you're coming back. But you have to be open to what you're coming back to and who you are now and how different that person is being asked to be. All right, Scorpio, I know this is kind of a heavy reading. Whew. But I hope this month is incredibly illuminating for you in the most, I'm trying to say in the most delightful way, but illuminating in a way that you get to see through through all the layers of masking, of trying to hide who you are, and to really step into seeing the beauty of who you are again and reconnecting with that in a different way so that you can release fear. You can understand that at your core, you're always going to be this beautiful being, even if your identity has to change. And that in doing so, it's going to bring in so much for you. That's going to be the point where everything comes back and it's almost like, and you're like this brand new, bright, shiny being. I hope this has been a good reading for you. I'm going to have to take a break after this because, that was a lot. But I do hope that, again, all of you guys have a fantastic month, and I will see you again next month for your love, abundance, and spiritual health reading. Bye, Scorpios.